Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we're coming out of winter and we're coming into spring. And I love when spring starts to emerge. I love the sun. I love the heat. Um, I just love when that life starts to come out after that long, cold, hard hibernation. I hope you're all doing really well. I wanted to talk about um, something that I think is very important that no one really talks about, which is fear of showing fear. Or, in other words, you know, Shakespeare, he said it really well. He said, the world is a stage and we're all actors playing our parts on the stage. Something along those lines. And to me, that really clicks and makes a lot of sense because through my journey of, let's say, becoming more aware and trying to understand and uh, just kind of get a feel for how we work and how we function and how we fit into the whole world, I have found that our personality, as so many great spiritual teachers point to, is um, it's sort of like the user interface of a computer. And our personality helps us to interface with the world. So our personality is comprised of things like language, behavior, emotions, responses, so many things, right? Someone does something to upset you or threaten you, you're going to respond. You're going to have a trigger, an emotional trigger. You're going to either be aware enough to observe that emotional trigger and then respond in a calmer way. But whatever happens, that persona, that character, that interface that people are exposed to is there for you to be able to navigate through the world. So I have lived in the Middle East for 10 years of my life. I was born in the United States. Um, then at age 10, moved to England, spent 13 years of my life living there in Europe and traveling around there and have a lot of family in Europe. And then for the last 16, 17 years of my life, I've been living here in the United States. I spent also 2 years living in Southeast Asia, and I can tell you that everywhere that I have moved and lived, um, your persona, your character, it's it's going to have to evolve and adapt in order to interface more effectively with your environment. If not, then you're going to have communication problems. Possibly, you're going to, maybe not be able to connect, communicate, get the things that you need, etc. And it all is all linked to our survival. So when Shakespeare says we're all actors performing on a stage that is the world, uh, it's such an interesting thing because, I don't want to trip people out too much, or I don't want people to overthink the things too much. We have to go out and there's two ways I have always thought of how you can operate out in the world. Either on autopilot, which is sort of with not much self-awareness, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. Sometimes I miss this way of functioning. Um, you're not really thinking about things too much, you're just responding, right? And your character is being conditioned by your life experience. So let's say if you're in a hostile environment, your character will be conditioned and your personality will adapt and change. That's why I always tell people that I love, I say like, hey, be very mindful of who you spend your time with, because you're we're very like amazing creatures, and we adapt and we evolve, and we can model our behavior and personality on things around us in order for us to be able to be more in harmony and be more successful in our environments. But the other way is, so we've got that way of like autopilot, then the other way is sort of like the autopilot is off, and now you're in charge, and you've got like this cockpit of like all these buttons and knobs, and you've almost got to like learn them all, you know, and be like, okay, now I've got to fly this plane manually. So you've got that way, you've got that way, and then, as I always like to come back to, balance, right? So we can attempt to live in a balance of both. So not be completely blind, you know, and be totally identified with our mind, like, and also not to be overly aware, so that we're analyzing everything and being so aware of so much that's going on that it's overwhelming, and it's just disruptive as well. So good balance is important, I believe. Which it's hard to do, you know. Human beings, we're like, we love to learn, we love to absorb. We are absolutely, probably, arguably, the thing that we're most attracted to in this world is growth and learning, which is why so many of us, we suffer and we put ourselves in situations of suffering, because there's really like um, no growth like the growth that you can get from suffering. you know? It sounds really crazy to say, but it's the truth. Like through suffering, through, um, as I say, pain is our greatest teacher, one of our greatest teachers. Of course, there's many, but it's one that helps us accelerate. It can help us accelerate, but it can also, for a lot of people, it can be very difficult to navigate that. So Shakespeare tells us that. I remember, I think it was on the Stephen Colbert show, Anthony Hopkins, the great actor, British actor, was on there. And on the same night, I believe Liam Neeson was also there as well. And they walked past each other backstage, and Anthony Hopkins, I think it was Anthony Hopkins or Liam Neeson, one of the two, when Stephen Colbert was interviewing them, said, "Oh yeah, we're old friends, and we see each other occasionally like this, when we're doing interviews, or And then Stephen asked, "Well, how do you guys get along, and what do you guys like together?" He's like, "Well, we see each other occasionally, and every time we do, Anthony Hopkins always asks Liam Neeson. He says, 'Have you been found out yet?' And he will always be like, 'No, not yet.'" And what he means by that is like, have they found out that this is all an act, that you're barely keeping it all together, that I think it was such an insightful thing for such great actors, especially like such a great actor as Anthony Hopkins, who's so like such a powerful like leading actor, and he's like at the top, of his realm, of his field, one of the most highly respected actors of all time, and he's being so vulnerable and so humble to share the fact that for him every day coming out in the world, like to convince everyone that he's this great Anthony Hopkins, is also as if he's walking on a tightrope, and it's when he bumps into his good friend Liam Neeson, and they are like, "Hey, have they discovered, have they found out yet who you really are, that you're just an average person, just like everybody else, with all your flaws and your fears and your everything and insecurities." So this all ties into what I wanted to share with you all today, which is that, many of us, we are afraid of showing our fear in our interactions with people, in every aspect of our life. it can be through our work, it can be in our family, father not wanting to show fear in front of his family, or someone not wanting to show fear at work, or, in martial arts and sports. This can be in anything. Why are we so afraid of showing our fear? Well, it's simple, right? Because if we show fear, what our fear is that if we show fear, then we're going to lose that respect, we're going to lose that love, we're going to lose that recognition. We're going to, if you trace it to the root, we're going to lose our power, we're going to lose our influence, we're going to lose the ultimate root fear is we're going to jeopardize our ability to survive, right? At the end of the day, all our fears and joys stem out of that survival, right? Whenever we do things or experience things that are joyful and feel good, those things are usually related to our survival becoming strengthened in this world. So if we get recognition from someone like, oh, you're doing so great, or you look so good, or wow, well done, or this and that, it feels good. Nature gives us this good feeling because nature is rewarding you and saying, yes, do more of that. That is going to help you be stronger and survive. Whereas if, let's say, we're bullied or put down or demeaned or whatever it is on that side, nature gives us this feeling of sadness, of gloom, of doom, depression. You feel down, you feel like a loser, you feel worthless, your self-esteem falls down. Nature is trying to tell you that don't do that. That's not helping. Now, it's important at this stage for you to realize that all those triggers that I just explained are outdated. Many of them are outdated, not all of them, but many of them are outdated for the world that we live in today. Because especially within the last 200 years, the rate at which our world has completely transformed is at such a high rate that biologically we haven't really caught up. Our evolution hasn't caught up. So we're going through this painful evolutionary process, which I think evolution is always going to be painful. But if you think about it, for up until 300, 400 years ago, the rate at which our world and our environment was changing was much, much slower. So our biology sort of like adapted to a slower rate of change. I'll give you a really kind of like a sidetrack example here. Like an avocado seed is a very interesting seed. For any of you who have tried to get an avocado seed to root, you'll know that you've got to leave it in water for a very long time. And it's interesting because it's almost as if that avocado seed has evolved to know not to root unless it is around a very stable and secure, plentiful source of water. And it will wait, it will say, I'm not sure, I'm not buying it. Okay, there's a lot of water now, but what about in a couple of weeks? I'm not going to root until I'm sure that this water is going to always be here, because as an avocado tree, I need a lot of water to survive. So I want to root and sprout in a very, moist, plentiful environment where there's plenty of water, right? So that creature, that living thing has evolved in that way. And so we have also evolved over thousands of years to make our evolutionary changes at a slower rate. But now, as we're being thrust into like every month, our culture is changing, our technology is changing, the way we interact with each other is changing almost like from week to week. So I'm sure that our bodies are now listening and responding and wondering, okay, well, hey, should we adapt? Should our babies be like totally like ready to use Facebook, Instagram, online media, TikTok, all of that? Should our babies be come out ready to not be depressed and anxious by this crazy world? Or are our bodies and minds also going to do a similar thing to the avocado seed and be like, well, maybe let's pass on a little bit to our children, but not like make such a drastic change, because possibly in 5 years, everything's going to change again. Maybe, obviously, this is probably not going to happen, but what happens if there's no electricity suddenly, right? I know that's unlikely, but just think of an example that could wipe out the way that we currently are living, which is pretty much totally dependent on electricity, computers. If tomorrow there's no electricity for some reason, let's say there's, you know, what is it from the Matrix movies where they do the electromagnetic pulse? Is that what it is? An EMP that blasts, turns off all the electricity. Let's imagine that some sort of galactic event takes place and wipes out electricity. And let's say that we've totally invested in our children's evolution to be geared to use the internet and all of this, and then suddenly there's no internet. They're going to be totally screwed, right? So evolution's a really interesting thing, and I do believe that we're going through this painful evolutionary phase. There's no secret now that anxiety, everyone's experiencing anxiety. 5 years ago when I started making my videos, it was not so widely talked about, all these things like depression, anxiety. It was a lot more underground, and people were not as comfortable as they are now. And here's the thing, is that people still today are not comfortable about it. We'll hear about it in the media, we'll hear about it on YouTube. It's all over the place. It's in magazines, it's in movies, it's everywhere, except for when we go out and we're with our friends or we're in our communities. And if it is there when you are with your friends and in your family and in your communities, then that's something for you to be extremely grateful for and blessed, because it is not like that where I live. It is not like that probably where a lot of us live. And it's probably the last thing on the list of things people want to talk about in most of this world. And that could be because people have a lot of other more important issues to face, like paying their bills or, putting food on the table or whatever it is, right? But anxiety, depression, social anxiety, etc., they exist. Okay, guys, I'm going to pause this video for a second. I got to take this call, and I will call right back. Hey, sorry about that, guys. So yeah, we have this fear of showing fear. It's just an unbelievable thing. Like there's that saying, right, that our greatest fear is of fear itself. It's a crazy, crazy situation that human beings have found. We found ourselves in 2021 with, as I was saying before I was interrupted there, that we all experience anxiety, we all experience depression, and more than ever now, everyone's talking about it. But sadly, in our communities, it's still something that is, I would say, taken advantage of. So when you show that vulnerability, unless you are in an Anthony Hopkins or something like that, it's unfortunate that people can sometimes mock that or take advantage of that or see that as a weakness, right? And I experienced this, quite a lot. I'm involved with a sport for the last 11 years, a very rough sport, and the sport doesn't always attract the finest people, on earth. It's a rough, tough sport. It's something that anyone can do this sport of mixed martial arts. You do not need to have any kind of genetic ability to be a world champion MMA fighter. The key to it is persistence, hard work, showing up, training every day. And I can tell you that I've seen plenty of assholes, plenty of people who are not cool, who are jerks, who train every day, are religious, work so hard, and some of them are successful, some of them are not. The hope is that through all that hard work and training and going through the baptism of martial arts, that they learn humility, they learn kindness, they learn that there's always someone better, and that one day you might be on top and the other day you might be on the bottom. And there's all these beautiful sayings in the world of fighting. One day you're the hammer, one day you're the nail. It's endless. There's so many great sayings. But whether people or not actually practice that in interactions, who's to say how much of that's actually trickling down into our culture, where people have the ability to be kind and strong and respectful. See, kindness and respect stem out of strength. Being rude, aggressive, stems out of fear, out of feeling threatened. And people who feel threatened are usually vulnerable and weaker. It's not to say that, you shouldn't be like that. Most of us, we have our vulnerabilities and our fears, but not all of us respond aggressively. Some of us, we respond with more love, and wisdom and self-awareness. So what do we do when we go out in the world and we have all this fear? Do we hide our true feeling and we play the game and we allow our personality, our interface, our user interface to function and, as Shakespeare says, play our part in the world? And then we come back home, and it's only in our homes that we're truly who we are. We truly get to take our mask off and show our real face. Kind of like a little morbid here, but I remember seeing someone who I deeply care about and love so much, after surgery once, and seeing their face. And their face was in this ultimate, really who they are. And just remembering how different that face is to when, when you're activated and charged up and your user interface is active and it's hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? I wonder if people, people are like that when they get home. Some people perhaps, or is it, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Then you get home, it's oh. Right? And then there's this RBF, right? Resting bitch face. Is that just people being real? Yeah, probably, right? And it's this is just my face. Doesn't mean I'm upset. Doesn't mean I'm depressed. Doesn't mean I'm angry. This is just my relaxed face. So what do? I always come to balance, because it's not a fun answer. I'm sorry, it's not the answer we want to hear, It's not the most exciting answer, but balance. It's really like I believe it's the way. Like so, use some balance. So there's a great book I recommend, and in this book, she says that. So the book is called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I've mentioned it before. And in this book, she says, um, when she's talking about vulnerability, is that share your vulnerability with people who deserve that. So, for many of us who are on this path of continuous improvement, who are trying to grow spiritually, mentally, physically, who are trying to become better people, stronger people, more confident, more capable, more able, kinder, trying to be strong humans for ourselves, for our family, so we can help our friends, help our business grow, help our health, help the people we love, be strong for them, be positive for them, especially in this world that we live in now. It's so much fear and negativity and doubt, so much doubt. People doubt everything now, including the truth, or facts. Everyone's got their own perspective now and their own opinion now, right? And it's amazing that we're all still like functioning in a civilized way, with major disruptors out there in powerful political positions that have tried to derail us, that have tried to create chaos and failed, because human beings, we've been through that with way worse powerful political leaders than the ones we have right now. They're lightweights, the ones that we have right now. They're just celebrity wannabes, just thriving off attention, like the last 4 or 5 years, just on the news, on Twitter every day, just sucking everyone's attention, feeding off everyone's attention. That's an attention whore at the maximum level. It's just about fame and celebrity, right? When we're living in a world now where attention is the greatest wealth. I've been making these videos for how long now? 6 years, and from the beginning, I've been talking about attention and how attention is power. Attention is your power, and now it's like clear to a lot of people that we're living in a world where your attention is what everyone is trying to get. Companies, corporations, people feed off that attention, because when you put your attention on something, you're giving love, you're giving yourself to that thing, and that's an incredible source of energy and power. Like someone like Jesus, for example, was powerful not because of his word or what, but he became powerful in this earthly realm because of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers that he had. And that was when the world started taking him seriously, the Romans, the politicians, and then they hijacked his cause, and his cause was from a place of truth, from a place of genuinely wanting to strengthen people who were suffering, who were weak and lost. But what a lot of people saw, what a lot of greedy politicians, powerful politicians, and people, corporate interests, even back then, what they saw was a massive ocean of attention. And how can we manipulate that and take advantage of that? It's still happening today. So, anyways, let's come back to the gist of this video, which is, what do you do, right? So listen to the words, the wise words of Brené Brown. It's very true. Like, not everyone should be on the receiving end of your vulnerability. Share your vulnerability with those who deserve your vulnerability. And the people who deserve your vulnerability, I would describe them as friends, as family. There are people who are not going to take advantage of your vulnerability, who are not going to power themselves up with it, who are not going to emotionally manipulate you because of that, or lead you astray and use or whatever. When you are with people who you're able to share your vulnerability with, usually you're going to feel good after you do it. You're not going to feel bad. At the end of the day, if you're ever confused about anything, just ask yourself, how do you feel afterwards, after you've done something? If you feel good, if you feel energized, it's usually good sign that you're doing something good. You know, I talk about like how it sucks to do push-ups or it sucks to do uphill sprints, but how do you feel afterwards? You feel amazing. You feel strong, powerful, healthy. So that's a good thing. Nature is telling you, do that more. When you get those endorphins, that's nature communicating with you. Nature telling you, yes, do that. You see, it's the carrot or the stick, right? That's basically how we work. We're these complex beings, but while we're extremely complex, at our core, it's just two things. It's yes, do this, no, don't do that. Just two basic things. And I often think that when we were a single-celled organism, moving left and right, it's either yes, go this way, you're going to survive more, or go that, or don't go this way, you're going to die. So just yes and no. This binary thing. You see it also in computer programming. You see how complex computer programs are. So super complex. I studied computer programming at college. I know how hard it is. I didn't do very well at that at my computer programming class. It's very difficult, but it all comes down to ones and zeros. For example, just then I was vulnerable and I shared with you guys that I wasn't very good at computer programming. You know, things like that to be aware of. You know, should you share that with certain people? And so I'm going to wrap this video up with the most powerful advice of all to help with this sort of thing: fear, anxiety, the fear of showing fear. The best cure for living with fear of showing fear, or any types of social fear, or is silence. Silence is the most powerful way to become powerful. So if you can just be silent when you're with people, be a good listener. Train yourself to listen more. Train yourself to resist that urge to take that bait and to respond and talk and try to be right over someone else. Be that listener, no matter how much, because people are going to want to get you to talk, because that's how they're going to get powered. Because when you open your mouth and you start giving that attention to people, and they are on the receiving end of that energy and that power and that attention. Silence is a great, powerful foundation for you to build yourself on. Listening, train yourself to be a better listener, talk less, train yourself to be quieter. Great opportunities for this will be with your family, with your friends, when you're in a safer environment where you feel more comfortable to do this. When you go hang out with your family, try just say, I'm not going to speak as much. Now, this doesn't mean that your intention has to be this kind of badass, oh, I'm like smarter than you, I'm doing this new thing called silence where I'm going to be like. So your intention is important. You know, try to retain that peaceful, kind, loving intention that you have, or just a neutral intention, you know, is great. Very good if you can do that. That's the best. You don't want to be cold, hot, cold, or anything. You're just going to be silent and ultimately putting your attention on your breath, you know, or there's this guy who does the YouTube videos, Elliot Holtz, I believe his name. Great, great. So much, he shares so much good stuff. He says breathe into your balls. I think that's a great one because, you know, it really brings your attention here. All right, guys, so I hope this video helps. Silence is the question. Silence is the key. And vulnerability with those who deserve it, not with everybody. And sending you all out there all the very best. Probably put a section of this video on my YouTube channel, or the whole thing, we'll see. But I've been putting more videos on my Patreon page, so for all of you on my Patreon, you're going to be seeing more videos, obviously. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Sending you all out there all the very best, and more videos to come. Happy spring. Adios for now.